An elite professor forces a simple Latina woman to solve a math problem, not knowing she is a mathematical genius. Carmen Ramirez's apartment in the South Bronx was small but immaculate. While cleaning the kitchen surfaces after preparing breakfast for her daughter Lucia, her eyes fell on the old notebook she kept under the sink. A notebook filled with equations and formulas that no one else had seen. "Mom, I'm leaving!" shouted Lucia as she adjusted her backpack. "I'll see you after school. Have a good day, my love," Carmen replied with a tired smile. At 35, Carmen worked as a janitor at the prestigious Columbia University. She had arrived from Oaxaca 15 years ago with a truncated dream to study advanced mathematics. Life had other plans: a pregnancy, a husband who disappeared, and the need to survive in a country that often looked at women like her with disdain or, worse still, with indifference. The subway was crowded that morning. Carmen clung to the rail while mentally reviewing a complex numerical sequence. Since childhood, numbers had been her refuge. While other girls played with dolls, she solved math problems for fun. Her mind worked in a way that even her teachers didn't fully understand. "Washington Heights, next station," announced the metallic voice. Carmen adjusted her navy blue uniform and checked her watch. She would arrive with enough time to have coffee in the campus cafeteria, where students discussed theories and concepts that she understood perfectly, though she pretended not to while cleaning nearby tables. The university campus was bustling with activity. Privileged students walked with the confidence that comes from the certainty of belonging to a place. Carmen slipped among them like a shadow, invisible despite being the one who kept clean the place where they built their bright futures. "Good morning, Mrs. Ramirez," greeted the security guard as she signed in. "Good morning, Joe," she responded with her marked accent, the one she tried to hide when speaking to professors. Her first destination that morning was the Department of Advanced Mathematics. While cleaning the main hallway, she observed Dr. Lawrence Whitman writing equations on a blackboard. He was known for his arrogance as much as for his brilliant contributions to the field of algebraic topology. Carmen paused for a moment. There was an error in the sequence the professor was developing. Instinctively, her fingers trembled, wishing to take a piece of chalk and correct it. But that wasn't her place. Here, she was just the woman who cleaned up the chalk dust that great minds let fall. "Do you need something?" Dr. Whitman's voice startled her. "No, sir. Excuse me, I was just leaving," Carmen replied, lowering her gaze as she pushed her cleaning cart. As she walked away, she heard the professor mutter something about maintenance staff interrupting important work. During her break, Carmen took out a worn notebook and continued where she had left off, an alternative solution to a problem she had seen published in a scientific journal forgotten in the faculty lounge. Mathematics had always been her secret passion, her way of escaping a reality where her value was measured by how well she could make dirt disappear. What no one knew, not even her daughter, was that Carmen Ramirez had an extraordinary gift, a gift that she would soon be forced to reveal. The Grand Thompson Auditorium was preparing for the academic event of the year, the International Conference on Advanced Mathematics. Carmen had worked overtime for a week to make every surface shine. As she polished the commemorative plaques of famous mathematicians, she felt a mixture of admiration and sadness. In another life, perhaps her name would have also been engraved on one of those plaques. "We need more chairs in Section B," ordered Dr. Eleanor Patel, the event coordinator, "and make sure the sound system works perfectly." "Yes, doctor," responded the head of maintenance before turning to Carmen. Ramirez helped set up the additional chairs. While arranging the chairs, Carmen observed Dr. Whitman, who was directing a group of university assistants with precise instruction. His voice resonated with unquestionable authority. "This symposium will determine the future of many of you," the professor declared. "The most important academics in the world will be present. I will not tolerate any mistakes." A young assistant, visibly nervous, dropped a pile of brochures. Dr. Whitman glared at him. "Mr. Chen, if you cannot handle something as simple as distributing programs, you will hardly be able to handle the complexities of advanced mathematics." Carmen discreetly picked up some fallen brochures near where she was working. Glancing at one, she noticed that Dr. Whitman would present a paper on new frontiers in the resolution of singularities in non-Euclidean spaces. It was a topic she had studied on her own, devouring books from the public library and academic articles she found online during the early hours after Lucia fell asleep. "Are you interested in mathematics, ma'am?" The voice belonged to Maria Sanchez, a doctoral student of Puerto Rican origin who had always treated Carmen with respect. "Just curiosity," Carmen replied, quickly returning the brochure. "They sound like important words," Maria smiled. "They are. Dr. Whitman has been working on that problem for years. He says he's close to a revolutionary solution." Carmen nodded, hiding the fact that she had detected a fundamental inconsistency in the published abstract. That afternoon, while cleaning Dr. Whitman's office, she couldn't help but look at the notes scattered on his desk. They confirmed her suspicion. The approach he was using to solve the problem contained a conceptual error that would invalidate his conclusion. For an instant, she considered leaving an anonymous note, but the risk was too great. People like her didn't correct people like him. At the end of the day, as she prepared to leave, Carmen overheard a heated conversation in the conference. "Lawrence, there's a problem with your approach," said Dr. Tanaka, a visiting mathematician from Kyoto. "The transformation you propose doesn't preserve the essential topological properties." "Nonsense," replied Dr. Whitman with disdain. "I have verified each step meticulously. My demonstration is infallible." Carmen walked away in silence, thinking about the irony of the situation. She, an immigrant janitor, had identified the same problem now being discussed by a renowned Japanese mathematician. Upon arriving home, she found Lucia doing her algebra homework. "Mom, I don't understand these problems," complained the teenager. Carmen sat next to her daughter and began to explain with patience. In these moments, she could allow herself to be who she really was, a brilliant mind who found beauty in numerical patterns. "How do you know so much about mathematics if you always say you barely finished high school?" Lucia asked curiously. Carmen stroked her daughter's hair. "There are many ways to learn, my love. Not all of them require a degree hanging on the wall." That night, she revisited her notes on the problem Dr. Whitman would present. She had found not only the error, but also an elegant alternative solution. She kept it in her notebook, like so many other discoveries that no one would ever see. The day of the conference dawned with a fine rain that soaked Manhattan. Carmen arrived early to ensure everything was perfect. The hallways were already bustling with activity, with world-renowned mathematicians speaking in various languages. Dr. Whitman toured the place like a general inspecting his troops, occasionally stopping to greet important colleagues. When he passed by Carmen, he didn't even look at her, as if she were part of the furniture. "Make sure there's no shortage of coffee during my presentation," he ordered without looking at her directly. "Yes, doctor," she replied, squeezing the cleaning cloth she was holding. The auditorium filled quickly. Carmen stayed in the back, next to the coffee tables, watching as the academic elite took their seats. Dr. Patel gave the official welcome and introduced the first speaker of the day, Dr. Lawrence Whitman. The audience applauded as the mathematician took the stage with the confidence of someone accustomed to admiration. His presentation began with a historical review of the problem, followed by an explanation of his innovative approach. Carmen listened attentively, confirming that, indeed, his methodology contained the fundamental error she had detected. Everything was proceeding as planned until it was time for questions. Dr. Tanaka was the first to raise his hand. "Dr. Whitman, I'm afraid there's an inherent contradiction in your transformation that doesn't preserve the necessary topological invariant." Dr. Whitman's face tensed slightly. "I appreciate your concern, Dr. Tanaka, but I assure you that my demonstration is solid." Other mathematicians began to intervene, divided between those who supported Whitman and those who saw the problem pointed out by Tanaka. The discussion heated up. "I propose a challenge." "Friedrich, Dr. Whitman finally said, visibly irritated. If someone can concretely demonstrate where my solution fails and propose a viable alternative, I will cede my presentation time tomorrow." A tense silence descended upon the auditorium. Several academics frantically consulted their notes. It was then the unthinkable happened. A coffee tray slipped from a waiter's hands, spilling hot liquid on the legs of several attendees in the last row. In the confusion, Dr. Whitman exclaimed, "For God's sake, can't we count on competent staff, even for something as basic as serving coffee?" Carmen rushed to help with the cleanup, but Dr. Whitman wasn't finished. "You," he said, pointing directly at her. "This is the kind of incompetence we have to endure. I bet you don't even understand what this conference is about." The auditorium fell silent. All eyes turned to Carmen, who kept her gaze down as she cleaned up the mess. "In fact," continued Dr. Whitman with disdain, "let's do a little social experiment. Ma'am, what's your name?" "Carmen Ramirez, sir," she replied quietly. "Mrs. Ramirez, come here for a moment." Carmen slowly walked to the front of the auditorium, aware of the curious and compassionate gazes. "I'm going to write a simple equation," said Dr. Whitman, taking a marker and approaching a whiteboard. "I want everyone to see what happens when someone without proper training faces advanced mathematics." But instead of writing something simple, Dr. Whitman, perhaps to humiliate her more effectively, wrote one of the key equations from his presentation, precisely the one containing the conceptual error. "Mrs. Ramirez, can you tell us what you see here?" he asked, with a condescending smile. The auditorium held its breath. Maria Sanchez, the doctoral student, shifted uncomfortably in her seat, clearly embarrassed by the situation. Carmen looked at the equation, then at the audience, and finally at Dr. Whitman. At that moment, she had to make a decision that would change the course of her life. Carmen observed the equation on the board. Her heart was racing while an uncomfortable silence filled the auditorium. Everyone expected her to humiliate her, to confirm the prejudices that Dr. Whitman had so clearly established. "I'm waiting, Mrs. Ramirez," insisted the professor with barely disguised impatience. Carmen inhaled deeply. 15 years of voluntary invisibility weighed on her shoulders. She thought about Lucia, about the pending bills, about the precariousness of her immigration status. Then she looked at the equation again. "The transformation you propose," she began with a trembling voice, "doesn't preserve the underlying algebraic structure because you've omitted considering the local orientation at the singularity point." The silence grew even denser. Dr. Whitman blinked several times, as if he hadn't heard correctly. "Excuse me?" he finally said. Carmen stepped forward and took the marker that the professor still held in his hand, limp from surprise. "If you'll allow me," she began to write, her hand moving with the confidence of someone who has lived among numbers all her life. "When applying the Gauss-Bonnet theorem in this context, we need to consider the intrinsic curvature at the critical points. Your transformation introduces a distortion that breaks the invariance you claim to preserve." Murmurs began to spread throughout the auditorium. Carmen continued writing, developing step by step an alternative solution. Her symbols flowed across the board with mathematical elegance, building a conceptual bridge that solved not only the immediate problem, but offered an entirely new approach. Dr. Tanaka stood up, approaching the board with wide eyes. "This is extraordinary," he murmured, following Carmen's equations with his finger. Dr. Whitman had taken a few steps back, his face a mixture of disbelief and humiliation. "She must have memorized," he stammered. "Someone told her what to say." Carmen shook her head as she completed the demonstration. "Nobody told me anything, doctor. I have been studying this problem on my own for years." Dr. Patel also approached, adjusting her glasses as she examined Carmen's work. "Lawrence, this not only corrects your error, it goes much further. It establishes a completely new theoretical framework." The auditorium had erupted in excited conversation. Some professors were taking photos of the board with their phone. Others were animatedly discussing the implications of what they had just witnessed. "Where did you study mathematics?" Dr. Tanaka asked Carmen. "Nowhere, officially," she replied. I completed high school in Oaxaca. After that, I've learned on my own, in libraries, on the internet, listening to lectures from the back of auditoriums like this one while cleaning. Maria Sanchez had also approached, and I've seen her many times with notebooks, she said. I always thought she was studying English or something like that. Dr. Whitman seemed to have partially recovered from the initial shock. This is absurd, he declared with a tense voice. A janitor without formal education cannot simply solve a problem that professional mathematicians have worked on for years. And yet, she has done it, replied Dr. Patel firmly. But mathematics doesn't recognize degrees, Lawrence, only truth. Carmen stood by the board, the marker still in her hand, suddenly aware of what she had just done. Her life would irrevocably change from this moment. For better or worse, she could no longer return to invisibility. Mrs. Ramirez, said Dr. Tanaka, I believe we have much to talk about. The rest of the morning passed like a dream. Carmen was led to a side room where several mathematicians questioned her about her knowledge, her methodology, her self-taught learning. She responded with the simplicity of someone who has nothing to prove, revealing an understanding of mathematics that left those present astonished. I need to call my daughter, Carmen finally said. She'll be worried if I don't get home on time. Of course, replied Dr. Patel, offering her phone. And Mrs. Ramirez, I think you should seriously consider accepting the proposal that Dr. Tanaka is about to make. Carmen looked confusedly at the Japanese mathematician, who was smiling kindly. We have a scholarship program for exceptional talents, he explained, and you, Carmen Ramirez, are the most exceptional talent I have encountered in a long time. The news spread like wildfire across campus. The mathematician janitor, they called her. Carmen tried to maintain normalcy, continuing with her cleaning duties while university authorities, the mathematics department, and Dr. Tanaka's foundation discussed her future. Dr. Whitman had disappeared from campus after the incident. It was rumored that he had requested a stress leave. His public humiliation at the hands of someone he considered inferior had been too much for his ego. A week after the incident, Carmen was cleaning the second-floor bathrooms when Maria Sanchez found her. Carmen, they're looking for you everywhere, said the student, visibly excited. The steering committee wants to see you in the dean's office. Now. But I haven't finished here, replied Carmen, pointing to her incomplete work. Maria laughed. I don't think that matters anymore. Let's go. In Dean Williams' elegant office, Carmen felt out of place in her cleaning uniform. Present were Dr. Patel, Dr. Tanaka, and several high-level administrators. Mrs. Ramirez, began the dean, we find ourselves in an unprecedented situation. You have an extraordinary gift that has remained hidden while you performed duties far below your capabilities at our institution. Carmen kept her hands together on her lap, uncomfortable with so much attention. Sidhu, the Tanaka Foundation has offered to fund your formal studies in mathematics. Siu, he continued, Columbia would be honored to accept you into our doctoral program with special considerations given your unusual academic journey. I don't understand, replied Carmen. You want me to leave my job to study? Exactly, confirmed Dr. Patel, with a full scholarship that would include a stipend for living, health insurance for you and your daughter, and housing on campus. Carmen remained silent, processing what she had just heard. It was the dream she had abandoned 15 years ago, served on a silver platter. And if I don't accept? She finally asked. Those present exchanged looks of surprise. It would be a tragedy for mathematics, replied Dr. Tanaka sincerely. But we would respect your decision. Carmen thought about Lucia, about how such an opportunity would also change her future. She thought about the nights studying in secret, about the solved problems that no one had seen, about the passion she had kept alive during all these years of sacrifice. I need time to think about it, she finally said. Of course, replied the dean. Take the weekend. Upon leaving the office, Carmen found herself on a campus that no longer saw her the same way. Students who had previously ignored her now greeted her with respect. Professors who had barely noticed her existence now looked at her with curiosity and new eyes. That night, sitting at her small kitchen table, she explained the situation to Lucia. "Mom, you have to accept," exclaimed the teenager. "It's incredible. I always knew you were super smart, but a mathematical genius. Wow. It would mean many changes," Carmen replied cautiously. "We would live on campus. I would be very busy studying. So, you're already busy working all the time. At least you'd be doing something you love." Carmen hugged her daughter, moved by her enthusiastic support. Sunday afternoon, while organizing her thoughts to give her answer the next day, someone knocked on her door. To her surprise, it was Dr. Whitman. "Mrs. Ramirez," he said, visibly uncomfortable. "May I come in?" Carmen hesitated a moment before inviting him in. The professor sat rigidly on the worn couch, looking around the modest apartment. "I've come to apologize," he finally said. "My behavior was unacceptable." Carmen remained silent, waiting. "The truth is that I've reviewed your work in depth," he continued. You not only corrected my error, but your approach is brilliant, revolutionary, even." "Thank you," Carmen replied simply. "I've heard they've offered you a place in the doctoral program," he continued. "I hope you accept." "Why do you care?" Dr. Whitman looked at her directly for the first time. "Because talent like yours shouldn't be wasted. And because," he hesitated, "I would like to have the opportunity to learn from you." The irony of the situation didn't escape Carmen. The man who had tried to publicly humiliate her now admitted that he had something to learn from her. "I'm considering the offer," she finally replied. When Dr. Whitman left, Carmen took out her notebooks and spread them on the table. Years of solitary work, of brilliant ideas born in the silence of early mornings stolen from sleep. Perhaps it was time for the world to know them. The next day, Carmen Ramirez, the woman who cleaned classrooms during the day and solved complex equations at night, gave her answer to the committee. The following autumn, Columbia's campus looked different to Carmen's eyes. She no longer traversed its hallways with a cleaning cart, but with books and a new confidence. Her first semester as a doctoral student had begun with a mixture of expectation and fear. "Professor Ramirez, do you have a moment?" An undergraduate student stopped her as she was leaving the mathematics building. Carmen was still not used to being called professor. As part of her scholarship, she taught introductory classes 3 times a week. "Of course, Jason. How can I help you?" The young man explained his difficulty with a functional analysis problem. Carmen listened attentively before guiding him toward the solution, with precise questions that allowed him to find the answer himself. "Thank you. You explain in a way that I can really understand," said the student before leaving. Carmen smiled. Her approach to teaching mathematics was different from that of many of her colleagues. She remembered too well the frustration of not understanding, of feeling excluded from the world of knowledge. In the department, her presence had provoked diverse reactions. Some professors treated her with genuine respect and curiosity, others with barely disguised skepticism. Dr. Whitman, surprisingly, had become one of her strongest advocates, publicly recognizing the value of her work. "Your article on the applications of the theorem you presented at the conference has been accepted in the Journal of Advanced Mathematical Theory. Prantotiern Dr. Anitkutaneindri." Patel informed her that afternoon, handing her an envelope. "Congratulations, Carmen. It's extraordinary for someone in their first doctoral year." The path had not been easy. Carmen had had to catch up with academic formality, learn to structure her mathematical intuitions in the rigorous language of scientific publication. But her intuitive and deep understanding of concept far outweighed any deficiency in her training. That night, as she walked toward the university apartment she now shared with Lucia, she reflected on the changes of the past year. Her daughter had flourished in the new environment, improving her grades and joining her school's science club. "Guess what?" exclaimed Lucia upon seeing her enter. "They accepted me into the summer program for young mathematicians. Professor Gonzalez says I have potential like you." Carmen hugged her daughter, proud to see how horizons were broadening for both of them. Dinner was interrupted by a phone call. It was Maria Sanchez, now a colleague and friend. "Carmen, did you see the dean's email? They've approved your proposal for the outreach program." The program had been Carmen's idea, to identify and nurture mathematical talent in public schools in predominantly Latino and immigrant neighborhoods, offering tutoring and scholarships for promising students. "We want to find the next Carmen Ramirez before she ends up cleaning floors," she had explained to the committee, without bitterness, but with the conviction of someone who knows both sides of inequality. 2 weeks later, Carmen found herself in front of a group of middle school students in a Bronx school, not unlike the one Lucia had attended before the change. "Mathematics is not just for geniuses or the privileged," she told them. "It's everywhere, in the patterns we see every day, in how we think and solve problems." A girl timidly raised her hand. "Professor, is it true that you were a janitor before?" Carmen smiled. "Yes, I was, and I'm proud of it. Cleaning classrooms allowed me to be close to what I loved when it seemed impossible to study it formally. My mom cleans offices," continued the girl, "and she's the smartest person I know." "I'm sure she is," replied Carmen. "Never let anyone tell you, neither you nor your mother, that the work you do determines your worth or your ability." At the end of the session, Carmen wrote a problem on the board, the same type of problem that Dr. Whitman had used to try to humiliate her. "I don't expect you to solve it now," she explained, "but I want you to know that someday, if you're interested, you'll be able to do it. Everyone here has that capacity." Back on campus, she stopped in front of the building where she had worked as a janitor. Through the window, she saw someone cleaning the same hallway she had traversed so many times. For a moment, their gazes met, and Carmen greeted with a gesture of recognition and respect. That night, while reviewing the equations of her new research project, Carmen thought about the unexpected turns of life, about how an act conceived to humiliate her had opened doors that had remained closed for so long. Her phone vibrated with a message. It was a photo of Dr. Tanaka in Tokyo, posing in front of an auditorium with Carmen's name on the main screen. "Your work is causing a sensation at the conference. The future is bright." Carmen smiled as she put away her notes. The future, indeed, was bright. Not just for her, but for all those who, like that girl in the Bronx, perhaps now could imagine possibilities that before seemed unattainable. Mathematics was always there, she thought, waiting for someone to see it, just like her, invisible until someone finally truly saw her.